Wow.
I would describe myself as someone who is overly emotional and overly sentimental. I have letters from when I was 10, when I was 15, when I was 21, from people that I don't even speak to anymore. I have kept so many diaries of me, like from childhood, from when I was 6 years old and up until now. There is a beauty to keeping these objects. It's documentation, and documentation of, you know, that specific time and period. And I think me keeping all of these things does come from a place of having that desire to capture that time and moment. It's almost like I'm trying to capture that feeling in my hand and manifesting it into an object or words. This is the only way I know how to be. Truly being sentimental is, I feel like, is just so natural to me, to put meaning into things, to over romanticize interactions. This is the only way that I know how to exist. Sometimes I think it's a blessing, other times I think it doesn't do me any good. I do fall into this mindset of to look back at these objects, at these memories, at these words, and grief. I have like this feeling of grief for my past self. I get so disillusioned when I read some entries and I have no recollection of feeling that way or experiencing something. It almost feels like there was a version of me that wrote that. She died, I woke up one day and decided to be a different person, and that is why I just don't know who she is, and that scares me. It scares me. That brings us to our topic of today, which is where do you draw the boundaries with our attachment to this dunya, and are the things that we are holding on to stopping us from becoming the best versions of ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for us to be. I used to literally cry myself to sleep thinking about this. I used to think about the things underneath my bed collecting dust here in Singapore when I was living in London. It sounds extremely dramatic. It is dramatic. I do recognize that it is dramatic. But it was a very real emotion, and I think it is because I put so much meaning to these things, and the fact that I've left them behind almost feels like I've left an extension of myself behind. It feels like I'm abandoning the timelines that exist here. Bolantasaki said that objects that help maintain self-worth or reinforce self-concept elicit positive emotions. Conversely, loss of or separation from the attachment object or product is likely to elicit the negative emotion of grief and sadness. I wanted to introduce this model by Huang, Picart, and Gillard to demonstrate our attachment behaviors and how this is interlinked with our self-concept and self-worth. What I really wanted to draw in here is the spiral at the side, which illustrates our self-development process. The author said that the self-development process is not a linear trajectory, but rather a spiral one. The solid line of the spiral at the bottom refers to self-centered development, and the dotted line at the top of self-development represents outward interests and focus on something bigger than the self. The reason that I'm bringing in this model is not to confuse anyone, hopefully, but rather as a reflection point. What are the things we find ourselves attached to in this life, whether it's possessions, whether it's people, whether it's things that may not necessarily be relevant or present anymore in our lives, and how is this affecting our self-development process? Where are you within that spiral? Where are you on that continuum of having self-centered goals as opposed to something bigger? Are your attachment behaviors to these things, are they acting as a barrier against you becoming the best and truest version of yourself? Yasmin Mogahed describes this concept of false attachments as things that we fear losing almost to a pathological extent, which can relate to our money, our belongings, our careers, our image, our physical appearance, or beauty. She says that until we break free from these false attachments, we cannot empty the vessel of our hearts. And if we do not empty that vessel, we cannot truly fill it with God. This struggle to free one's heart from these false attachments, the struggle to empty the vessel of the heart, this is the greatest struggle of earthly life. Beyond what I describe as being overly sentimental to, I don't know, sentimental objects, beyond that, I'm also overly sentimental to versions of myself that do not exist, that no longer exist, whether it be in the past, whether it is my potentials. I have this habit to create false attachments to things that do not offer any productive meaning, that causes me to fall into the trap of grief and loss because I am not within that realm of reality. How I'm trying to reconcile with all these emotions to what I describe to be over emotional, over sentimental, overly attached to this dunya is realizing that I am whole regardless of my situational context, regardless of the environment that I am in. I cannot define myself based on my possessions. I can't define myself based on my circumstance, where I live, how I look, because this is all so temporary. Life is always changing. Life is all around you, and anything can just be taken away from you. When I really think about like this topic, I really just think about Palestine. In Gaza, I think about the homes being destroyed like that, all the possessions gone with the rubble, bloodlines of families just massacred and left under the rubble. Really makes you think about what that can do to a person if everything that they own, everything that they know of, the place they used to be able to call safe, the people that used to live in it, everything is just taken away from you. What would be left of a person? It does serve as a reminder of how easily things can just be taken away from you like that. What are we really living for? When I relate that back to myself, I'm not talking about people in Gaza, I'm talking about myself who lives in an extremely privileged position where I've never experienced war. I live in a first world country. I'm relating all these lessons back to myself. Deep attachment to this life. You know, when you become attached to such temporary, meaningless things, temporary, meaningless relationships, then your emotions become so dependent on their permanence. And what will that do to yourself? Obviously, it will put you in a negative headspace that will undermine your ability to develop the self, to progress in life, because you're just holding on to things that are so temporary that may not even exist anymore. I'm not trying to say that you need to become completely detached to this life and your possessions and like let go of everything, live as a nomad, live as a minimalist, like don't own anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is important to live intentionally with this mindset of how temporary everything and anything around us is, and that is essential to building healthy emotional attachment to this dunya and for the sake of yourself. We need to stop becoming detached to our past lives and our past selves, our past bodies. They don't exist anymore. Like, the version of you that exists is the one that exists right now. How you choose to live your life right now is going to affect your fate in a lot of ways, whether you believe in the afterlife or not. As a Muslim, I truly believe that my belief of an afterlife helps me reconcile with my emotions to letting go of things. And I talked a lot about it in my last video. Truly, you just have to believe that everything in your life is there for a reason. Everything that happens is for a reason. How you're existing now is just part of a big story, and you just need to understand that you need to let go. Like, you need to let go to be able to progress to the next chapter. I truly believe, like, believing that this is not all to life, that there is something that exists after, that there are consequences to the things that I do now, that the people that have not received justice in this life will receive justice in the next. And the people that commit injustices in this life, if it won't happen now, they will be dealt with in the afterlife, and that really helps me reconcile with my emotions, to letting go of this world and the expectations that I hold to this world, the expectations I hold myself to, that are generated from this hyper consumerist capitalistic system that has been made to benefit such a specific demographic. How I aim to move ahead in life truly is with my mind, my heart, and my soul, being in tune with these three things, and using Islam as my guiding light through every hardship, through every circumstance where I'm not too sure about things, always going back to like, okay, but what would Islam say about this? I just want to become detached from such meaningless things that can so easily play into your self-concept and the actions and decisions that you make today, whether it's to do being more mindful of like what I consume, whether it be on social media, whether it be things that I'm purchasing, just moving forward with knowing that you can't create your identity based on things that truly only exist here, because that's just limiting yourself to a box that you put yourself in. To my point of being overly emotional and over sentimental, these are amazing things because I am able to appreciate life and see beauty in life and romanticize life and create very meaningful relationships and be able to express words in very beautiful ways. I think it does me really well. However, I'm wary that this characteristic of mine causes me to put my energy in the wrong places, and that backfires on me because then this affects my entire self-concept, and as a result affects my self-development and holds me back from becoming my full potential. And inshallah, I just want to be in a place where I detach myself from meaningless meanings, like fulfilling an aesthetic or fulfilling an idea in my head and causing me to fantasize about things that don't even exist in my life. I really want to hold on to that intuition that I have with my brain and my heart, using Islam as my guiding light to navigate through life. And when I am able to successfully do that with peace and have such a deep understanding of my self-concept, that to me is letting go of the dunya. That is the point in time truly where I feel like I'll be able to live a fulfilling life, inshallah. Ali radiallahu anhu once said, detachment is not that you should own nothing, but rather nothing should own you. What are the things that exist in your life? And how would you assess your attachment to these things? Are they making you hyper-fixated on the expectations of this life and whatever exists in this life, which is so temporary? And is that holding you back from becoming your full potential?
Okay, smile. Ambil aja lah, Bang. Dah ambil. Ambil lagi banyak lah. Smile lah. Dengan Fakin.
Wow. TED Talk.